and welcome to another video from Colour with Claire. So today we're going to do another little challenge video for a bit of fun on the channel. Now I've chosen a page from Hannah Carlson's new book which I'm absolutely in love with. This is called Spirit Animals or Soulmates depending on where you buy it from. And I thought we'd also incorporate the colour catalogue by Sarah Renee Clark into this as well. So it's not long since we did one of these challenges. I think it was in the Fantasia colouring book, and I chose a palette from the colour catalogue and it really pushed me out of my comfort zone, but I absolutely adored how the finished image came out, and it was just so different to what I would have chosen if I'd have sat there without any kind of reference or colour palette and just done it out of my head. So I thought we'd try that again in this brand new book. Now I've been wanting to do this page ever since I saw it. It's the witches or the pagan kind of page, and you know I'm all into that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just really liked it. There's also this page that goes with it, of course, because it's spirit animals or soulmates, so you've got the frogs and the potions and things. But I just thought for today that we would concentrate on this page here. So you can see that I've got the colour catalogue up in front of me, and I'll take us back to the start so you can see how I chose this particular palette. So I have a really big affinity for purple and greens when it comes to kind of horror stuff. It must be growing up with Goosebumps books and things. It always seemed to have purples and greens around there. So I really wanted to keep to that kind of colour scheme. So I browsed by colours this time, because I think last time I did it by keywords with landscape, because we had a big landscape picture. But I'm going to go by colours this time because I know the exact purple that I want to use on this. So I've gone into the ultraviolet section. And then from here you can see all the palettes that fit into that category. So I know that I want something that's going to really contrast and pop out of the page, because that's just my kind of colouring style. I do a lot of bold, vibrant colours. I'm not very good at the flip side, which is the muted vintage palettes, but I would like to try and get better at that. But I decided to go for this one here. And this is colour palette number 196. The keywords for this are nature, ocean, bright and contrast. So really, the only thing that sort of goes with this is the contrast and brightness. Possibly the nature, because, you know, paganism and all that kind of thing. Very kind of centred in nature and that sort of stuff. So the colours on this palette are lilac, ultraviolet, dark blue, meadowlark and lime. And as you know, with the colour catalogue by my previous videos, you've got all of your different colour codes and hashtag numbers for hex numbers, I think they're called, to find the colours online if you want to try and match them up with colours that you've got in your colouring pencil sets or what have you. So decided to go for this one. It's really bright and contrasted. You can't really get any more contrasted than this beautiful green chartreuse kind of yellow on the back of a deep purple. So I did a little bit of swatching, and I figured out that to get these almost exact colours from this palette, I would need to use several different pencils, obviously, but different types of media as well. So first of all, we've got this green, and I chose, of course, chartreuse from the Prismacolor pencil set. We've then got this yellow, which was a little bit difficult because it's a very muted kind of yellow. It's not bright or vibrant, and it almost does have green tones to it, but the closest thing that I could find was the Deco yellow, PC 1011, in the Prisma Premier, because it's a very muted yellow. So I thought that'd go nicely with that. We've then got the Dioxazine Purple Hue, PC 132, for that darkest purple. The Violet PC 932 for this one here. And then from the Luminance set of pencils, we've got Ultramarine Violet, which is number 630. And they all match up really, really well on the palette. I'm also going to be using some Neo colours. I'll just pop these down so I can show you. So I recently treated myself to the full set of Neos that I've been after for years now, and here they are. So I decided that I would pick some of these out to do the background areas and the larger bits that are a bit more difficult with pencil. So I figured out that I'm going to need this periwinkle blue and then a blue indigo to do the darkest and the lightest purples if I'm doing a purple background, which is what I want to do. I don't think there's any others that really match up to the purples on there, but we do have this Chinese green, which kind of goes with these colours here. So if I just do this, you can see it's very, very similar to the colour that we've got here, which is the Deco Yellow. There's also, in the Neos, this one here, which is lime green, and this, it's not exact it's not the, oh, that's gone. It's not the exact tone of the green, but it is a very, very light green, so maybe I'll make use of that, I don't know. I'm not going to stick as rigidly to the palette as I did last time, because I think it's just setting yourself up for failure, but we will have a go at it, we'll see what happens, and I'm really excited just to see if it works really. So I'm going to get on with that, and I'll come back to you maybe in stages or maybe at the end. We'll see how we go, and I'll of course be leaving all the links for downloading your colour catalogue if you want one, and the book as well. So check the description for that. But for now, I will see you very shortly. Hello, this is VoiceOver Claire here, talking to you after I filmed this whole process. So I'm just going to talk you through a little bit about what I'm doing while we speed this up for time reasons, because this has taken hours and hours, and I'm sure you don't want to sit here watching it completely real time. So I've sped it up a little bit for you. But all I'm doing here is I am putting down the first layer of the Neo colours. So starting with black at the top, then the indigo blue, and then the periwinkle. So now I'm going on with my first layer of water. I've always found it's better with Neo colours if you build the layers, and I always do around 3 layers in total, so that's what I'm going to be doing here. So I'm just building up the water layer here, and you don't have to worry about blending at this stage between each colour, because you are going to be adding at least 2 more layers, so don't worry about that just yet. So just adding this first layer of water. Also, don't worry if you are using Neos and water in this book, it doesn't bleed through or shadow or anything, so don't worry about that. Now I'm going back in for the second layer, starting again with the black, but this time instead of scribbling onto the page, I'm taking the colour from the tip of the Neo colour crayon with my brush, so applying it onto the page that way. I just think that it seems to work better, it goes onto the paper better, and it's easier to blend them together at the seam of each colour. So just doing this side now, try and concentrate on one side or one section at a time, because you don't want them to dry too much before you go back in to blend each colour. So I'm just adding a little bit of the indigo and then a bit of the periwinkle to the very edge where the colours meet, and making sure that they're nice and blendy. But again, there's going to be another layer on top of this, so don't worry at the moment. The biggest thing I get told about the Neo colours is that people can't use them or can't get used to them because they're so patchy, and that is because you do need to layer them. So unless you want that kind of patchy look to it, you do need to layer them at least 3 times to create a solid colour, as I'm doing here. Now I'm spending a little bit more time on this last layer, just building up the blend between the colours, so making sure that you've got that little bit of indigo blue or the whatever colour you're using, and then mixing it on the actual paper itself with the lighter colour or the next colour. So you'll see as I come down here, I'm bringing some of the periwinkle in over the top of the indigo blue, and I'm just mixing it on the paper. While it's still dry, you can do that. Sorry, not while it's still wet, you can do that. So I decided to take a Posca pen and a normal white gel pen and create a bit of a lightning effect in the background. Now I'm not really sure how well that worked just yet, but I am going to add some more touches to it later. But I did want this kind of look of a big lightning storm going on, as if she's conjured some sort of, I don't know, potion. She's been using potions and conjured some sort of kind of lightning storm or something going on, but that was the idea in my head. And all I did was just put a little bit of the Posca paint onto a piece of scrap paper, and then when I needed the thinner lines, I picked up that paint with the thinner white gel pen. So I'm coming on here with my chartreuse and my Deco Yellow, but to be honest with you, those 2 colours were so similar that I wasn't getting too much of a contrast, and I really wanted to build up that contrast. So I brought in grass green, and you can see that I'm doing that on either edge of her blouse, her tunic, and then I'm blending that in with the chartreuse and eventually towards the centre, the Deco Yellow. So in a moment I'll go back to the hat and just deepen up the grass green areas a little bit, because it seemed like the hat was just not as bold and vibrant. It didn't have too much in the way of shadows, So I'm just building that back up a little bit with the grass green. Then onto the sleeves. So all I'm really doing is making sure that I'm putting the grass green around the ends of her hair that would cast shadow anywhere. So on her tunic, on her sleeves, just to give that look of depth and dimension a little bit anyway. Doing a bit of the jewellery, doing her eyes in the greens as well, and her lips. I usually do the eyes, the lips and the clothes the same colour. And I'm then using this combination of greens and the deco yellow on all of the leaves going around the border of the picture. So it is advisable if you are using things like neo colours or pretty much anything, to be honest. Markers are okay, but if you're using pencil or some sort of water-based media, pastels, anything like that, it is advisable just to use a piece of scrap paper to lean the edge of your hand on so that you don't smudge anything. And I've luckily remembered to do that this time. So here on this symbol at the front, I've just added a bit of deco yellow to the scroll work. And then I'm adding in all 3 of the purple pencils that I picked out at the start to the inner circle of the pendant, the symbol, whatever you want to call it, just to bring that forward a little bit away from the greens and the yellows. Carrying these purples on the points of the symbol and using the deco yellow over by the sun. I'm quite random with how I colour. I don't do one section at a time. I just go here, there and everywhere. So that's why you'll see me going all over the place. Just adding a bit of purple and grass green into the centre of the circle and on the edges as well. Using the deco yellow on the moon and the luminance on the clouds. So just to create a really smoky kind of effect. So here I've grabbed terracotta, burnt sienna and goldenrod, and then a dark umber for the stick of the broomstick. So I'm going to be keeping to these colours as much as possible, using the goldenrod to deepen up all of the deco yellow scroll work and make it look a little bit more metallic. Also using the goldenrod and the burnt umber on the wheat stalks at the side. So I really want to try and limit the palette as much as possible. Even though we're already limited with the palette we chose, I'm limiting it still because I don't want to add too many extra colours on top of that. Using a bit of eggshell and white on the skin, I want her to look quite pale and witch-like. Bit of 20% grey for the shadows, and I'll come in a moment with a bit of 70% grey just to deepen up that kind of contrast between the skin and make her look a little bit glowy. Next up, I'm using the goldenrod all the way around the border, so this twig frame, and then with the terracotta just here, there and everywhere, adding in little bits of darker colour. There's no rhyme or reason to it, just sort of messing around at this stage, seeing what happens. So I'm using exactly the same greens as her hat and tunic on the rest of the leaves here under the wheat stalks. And we're nearly done, just adding a bit of goldenrod here and there, bit of white gel pen. Just colouring her collar with the purples. So I was really stuck with what to do for her hair because I couldn't really use green or purple on this, and I didn't really want to use any more brown. So I looked back at the colour palette that we chose, and there was this pop of beautiful bright blue, almost turquoise blue. And I thought, let's use that for the hair because we're not deviating from the palette at all. We've still got something that's on that picture, but it does bring the hair away from the background and it separates it from the greens as well. So I thought that was a really good idea. And it also doesn't take away anything from the two main colours, the purple and the green. I think it really sits nicely together, and I guess that's why it works so well on the original palette. Just doing finishing touches now. and finishing off the lightning, just looking for a white pan pastel. And I'm using a little sponge just to dab a bit of this white pastel around the lightning so it gives off a bit of a glow. I'm also using a bit of yellow, a very little bit of yellow, to make it look more like lightning, I guess. Okay, so there we have it. There is the finished challenge page. As you can see, I've put it side by side with the colour palette from the colour catalogue, and there have been deviations obviously from the colours that were in this particular palette, but I think that they all really complement each other very well, and none of them have taken away anything from the brightness or the contrast of the colours that we chose on this palette. So I really hope that you've enjoyed watching this process. If so, leave me a thumbs up and a comment please, and if you want the links for this book and for this colour catalogue download, I'll be leaving those in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon on Colour with Claire.